Hi, everyone. We're going to give everybody a little bit more time to get in and then we'll get started. Thank you. All righty. Well, welcome to day 2 of Impact. We are so excited to have you back. Hopefully you attended yesterday. If not, it will be in the archives under recordings. We had a really great day. Today, we have a special guest with us, Howard Sharfman, who I'm assuming, given all the speeches he has given in the industry, you probably know. If you haven't heard Howard speak, Howard is the Senior Managing Director of NFP Solutions, and he is known throughout the industry as someone who's incredibly innovative, and we are very lucky to have him today. So thank you, Howard. I'm going to turn it over to you because I know you've got a lot to offer today.
Well, thank you, Carla, and good morning, everyone. I so much appreciate being here. I just wanted to start by thanking everyone for investing your time. You have choices, and you chose to be with us here today, and I appreciate that very much. Also, realize I'm surely not a professional speaker. I have a kind of nasally, whiny voice. I sometimes miss some words and mix them up a little bit. So bear with me. I'm going to do my best. So today we're going to talk about building your business. And we're going to talk about 9 ideas. Now, when I tell you 3 ideas are ideas that are introductory or basic. And then I say that there's 3 ideas that are intermediate. And I say that there's 3 ideas that are advanced. Do not misunderstand. This doesn't mean that those ideas are for beginning, intermediate, and advanced people. What I mean is that everyone needs all of these. Everyone needs to use these concepts. Someone who's 4 days in the business could find a prospect in one of the advanced idea concepts and then find someone to help them with that idea. And someone who's 30 years in the business might have forgot some of the things that worked. So that's what we're here to talk about today. So we're going to start with an agenda. Why? Because my first idea is always an agenda. And then we're going to move on. Sorry, I had a skip there in the slide. And then we're going to go on and talk about talking to different generations in a family. We're going to talk about the effect of interest rates. We're going to talk about the new tax proposal, not in the concept of the tax proposal, but how we can market around the tax proposal. We're going to talk about an automatic referral system, marketing on social media, working with LERPs and then leverage LERPs, a very elegant combination of private placement life insurance and a guaranteed program, and then finally a SERP swap. After that, we're going to have some time for questions. And so put your questions in the chat, please. I won't be looking at questions during this presentation. So we're going to start with an agenda. We often are rushed. We have a bunch of meetings. We need to stop for a moment and we need to put together an agenda. Why? Because we need to tell the prospects what we're going to tell them. Then we're going to say it. And then we're going to remind them what we said. Because you know, most people aren't going to remember it if we just tell them once. Next, we're going to make sure in that presentation that we cover why insurance, why you, and why now. Why insurance, why you, and why now. And always end with the next steps. End with the question, Miss Client, Mr. Client, how long would you like this to take? Because once they answer that question, then you're allowed to bug them because they've asked you to. And you're allowed to say something like, John Smith, you told me that you wanted this process to take 5 weeks. I want to make sure that we're on our timetable and we could hit your deadline. So I need you to take an insurance exam next week, or I need you to help us with obtaining an APS, or I need you to contact your attorney to do the following. You've been given permission to that. That all starts at the agenda and we have to think ahead. Hope that makes sense. Idea number 2, ask about the older and younger generation. So ask about someone's parents, ask about someone's children. Right now, I'm at the age where many of my clients' children are succeeding in business in amazing ways. I'd like to meet them or have someone in my office meet them. So we want to make sure we ask about them. One, it's part of just generating rapport with the client, but also it's equal to one referral. Because you see, when I ask to meet someone's parents, when I ask to meet someone's children, that's the same as a referral. And often we do this by talking about long-term care when talking about people's parents. You see, so many of my clients who are very ultra high net worth, their parents have long-term care insurance. It's called their children. The question is, do the children want to reinsure that to our insurance company and provide for that? There's a quality of life issue that goes on. There's the parent that doesn't want to ever be a burden to a child, even though it might not be an economic burden, they may think it is. And we could reinsure that with our insurance carriers. So it's a great conversation to have. A dear friend of mine who passed many years ago, his name is John Smith, but he was no ordinary John Smith. He was an exceptional insurance professional. And he was from the South, and he used to say, "How's your mama?" And he'd say, "How's your mama?" because he'd find out. He'd care about that conversation. And then he'd talk to them about wealth transfer, talk to them about estate taxes. He'd talk to them about multi-generational planning. Well, "How's your mama?" doesn't come out as well from someone who grew up in Chicago, but the concept still works. Very important concept. Number 3, what have interest rates done to a simple conversation about income replacements? You see, the old way of looking at income replacement, and many of the calculators that are still online have a version of this. Your after-tax income times 8 plus debt plus cost of colleges, less liquid investments equal your total need. So if we went through one of these older calculators and we had someone who had a $100,000 income need, we multiply that by 8. We had debt, and in this case, I showed in this example, $300,000, 2 kids at $50,000 a year, which is the number that comes up on these calculators. It's clearly wrong if my children had anything to do with that. College was much more expensive than that. Less liquid savings. And in this case, we had $1,075,000 worth of need. And no one could tell me that $1,075,000 worth of need isn't a lot of money. But at the low interest rates we're at today, it's just not enough. The insurance companies have adjusted their formulas, how much insurance they will allow someone. And a better and new formula looks more like this. After-tax income times 25. Someone might say, that's a lot. Well, is it? If someone needed $100,000 and they had $2.5 million in the bank, they could take out 4% every year. That's all we could count on with all of the Monte Carlo scenarios that we look at. So we use 25. We add debt. We add the cost of college times $100,000 a child, which still probably is not enough. We subtract liquid investments for total need. So in this basic situation, we have $2.875 million worth of need. Why is this important? I hope everyone on this line understands this. But the concept is here. 2.275 million is a lot more than 1.075 million. Think about how many clients, old clients, either your clients or someone else who's been abandoned by their agent's clients, need a review, need to have a discussion, need to update this planning. As interest rates go down, the need for insurance goes up. And that's a conversation. I've had the honor and privilege of paying over $1 billion of death claims to my personal clients and for insurance that I've sold. I've learned a lot over that. But no one has ever said to me, boy, I wish we had less. No one's ever said that. No one's ever said, ooh, what type of insurance was it? Is it term or universal life or whole life? No one's ever said that. They ask how much and when. They ask how much and when. It is our job to make sure we continuously do needs analysis, both on the income replacement side, on the estate tax side, and any other calculations we need. There's so much more to income replacement, but just the simple fact that interest rates have gone down so low, I could probably argue that you need 50 times your income. Well, let's move from where we were to 25%. And just a concept. Wouldn't this make a great speech? Just this subject, a seminar, an article, a website post. Couldn't you talk to many of your clients about this? I think you can. So let's market this concept. We win football games by doing blocking and tackling well. This is the blocking and tackling of the insurance industry. Idea number 4. I know we've heard about this new tax proposal. We surely don't know where it stands. We don't know what the infrastructure bill is going to be. We don't know what the reconciliation bill is. But this is an opportunity to talk to your prospects, to talk to your advisors, and to get involved in the industry and be part of the solution. So get ahead of the conversation. Wouldn't your clients like to know that you're involved? Wouldn't they like to know they're part of an organization that may be doing lobbying for the benefit? Wouldn't they like to know that you're informed? And finally, wouldn't they like to know that they're important enough to you to make the phone call to talk about? This morning, it's pretty early. I'm in Chicago right now. It's not 10:30, but I've had 2 conversations with attorneys about this tax proposal. What do you hear is going on? What do your people say? Let's talk about it. What should we do in this situation? I have a guy. It's a wonderful conversation to have. And those conversations were inbound to me, not outbound from me, because I made the first outbound conversation. They know I'm involved. We should also know wherever this tax proposal lands, once things are said, they often can't be unsaid. So once we've spoken about a concept, it's not like this Congress might not act on it and another Congress will forget about it. It's in their notes, it's in their records. The concept is there and it may come back. So we have to get ahead of it. It's just a wonderful conversation to have. What if there's an income tax at death and not stepped up basis? What if the estate tax exemption goes down? What if the unified credit goes down? What do we do about that? Our clients don't want to leave their children problem assets. So even if a client doesn't have an estate tax, and even if they don't have a grantor trust, what problems do they have? Well, let's talk about it for a second. So here's a 55 attorney with the following situation. He has a stock portfolio that has a basis of $1 million and a current value of $4 million. They have an IRA with a balance of $2 million. And just those 2 assets cause a problem. Yes, these are good problems. They don't have an estate tax problem, married couple, but the stock portfolio, if we have a 30% tax on the gain, if there's no stepped up basis, is $900,000. The IRA tax at 40% is $800,000. It's $1.7 million. This client would benefit by owning a $1,700,000 life insurance policy, either survivorship or single life, to pay that tax. We don't want to leave our children problem assets. We don't want to leave our children assets with liabilities. These assets have liabilities. They're just a little disguised, and we call them taxes, but they are liabilities. Is that any different than leaving someone a bank note? Not really, except you might be able to negotiate with the bank better. So concept number 4, talk about this tax act. Talk about it with your clients, talk about it with the advisors. Understand it. There's a tremendous amount of information out there. Talk to your carriers, talk to your industry associations. They're on top of it, and you could be a leader and an expert. And I think that would help significantly with your relationships. Idea number 5, I'm calling it the automatic referral system. In that same conversation, we're going to complete a fact find, maybe. Hopefully we have one. Over the years, we've created a fact find for this client. We're going to confirm some facts. We're going to add things to them. And we're going to make sure we have the name and contact information for their CPA, their estate attorney, their wealth advisor or banker, and any other people that are important to them. We're going to then talk about the advisor group concept. You see, I don't want to be the most trusted advisor for my clients. I want to be an advisor on an advisor team. I want to be an advisor on an advisor team. I do not want to be the most trusted advisor. I want people to question the recommendations I have because I want to have the best solution for my client. And the only way to do that is to be an advisor on the advisor team. So how does that work? It means I have to know their CPA, their estate attorney, their wealth advisor, their banker, and anyone else who's important to them. So talk about that concept. Rarely, if ever, will any of these people send the client a bill. But I cover that first with my client. Hey, I'd like to reach out to these people, introduce myself, tell them we're on the same team. I might have information that they don't have. They might have information that I don't have. And together we can come up with better solutions for you. How many clients are going to say no to that? But how many times when we leave a client, we don't have permission to call their CPA, their estate attorney, their wealth advisor, or banker, or someone else important to them? We need that. It's called leverage. It's how our business continues to grow. And we have to make sure that we focus on it. It's a referral. It's an automatic referral system. Now, if your client doesn't have a CPA, it doesn't have an estate attorney, it doesn't have a wealth advisor, you have to think about the pond that you're fishing in, if it's the right pond. If it is, maybe you have some great referrals you can make to that person. Once again, bringing in your group concept. Bring in the partners that you're working best with, help clients, because the fact is, tax law is complicated. High net worth, ultra high net worth people need a CPA, they need an estate attorney. They need certain forms. They might not need a very complex estate tax form, but they surely need durable powers of attorney to healthcare. They need core documents. And they need that for their children too, are over 18 years old. So let's make sure we maintain our automatic referral system. Next, marketing, social media. I don't want to hear it from some of our senior agents. Oh, it's not for me. Do you know how many times I get notices that someone has looked me up on LinkedIn before a meeting? Over 70% of the time. That's real estate space on the internet that I own. It's my LinkedIn page. What does it say? What does it say about you? What does it say about you paying attention? If you're putting a billboard up of everyone driving into New York City every day, what would you want it to say? Because that's what you have there. So you need a marketing calendar for your social media. What are you going to post on LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram? There's people who are using TikTok. They might not recommend it, but there are some people who are doing it. But you need to have a plan. You need a calendar. It keeps you organized, which is great. It forces creativity in your mind because you have to create content, which makes you start thinking of a concept. And once you think of a concept, it's in your mind and you're going to use it with a lot of different clients and prospects. So it forces creativity, which helps. It's leverage. It's leverage. That LinkedIn page, that social media post is working when you're not. You're never out of sight for your clients. You might use email marketing also. You're never out of sight. Don't be obnoxious about it, but have a plan, have a calendar, think about it. Connect with events and holidays. Liam and Diem, that's Life Insurance Awareness Month, Disability Insurance Awareness Month. Do you know more life insurance is sold the month of Life Insurance Awareness Month and the month after that than the rest of the year? Why? There's people helping you. Many people are posting on it. Life Happens is talking about it. So you could add on to that and you could have more presence because of that. Show the clients you're organized, show that you're professional, and show that you have concepts and ideas and you're creating in that world. It's leverage. Let the internet do your job, part of your job, a job of yours. Once created, once you create one thing, once I created this speech, can I use it for social media? Can I add parts of it to a website? Could I make a client presentation or speeches about it? Can I use it as an email campaign, seminars, training? I also always have a topic to talk about and practiced. It comes off my tongue better. So creating things is so incredibly important. And I want you to create things. I want you to have a social media calendar. I'd like you to know what you're doing in advance. And then when something that comes up that's a hot topic, like tax reform, add to it. Add to it. There's always something. So have your social media calendar continue to create. And by the way, make sure you get everything approved. Make sure you get everything approved by your agency, if you're an agency, by your broker dealer, if you have a broker dealer, by your insurance company, if you work for them. Idea number 7, a little more advanced. So LIRP, Life Insurance Retirement Program. We've heard that word before. And there's been a tremendous number of clients helped by overfunding policies, having cash value grow, and taking money out on a tax preferred basis. How can we make it better? Well, maybe we can if we leverage it, some or all of it. So let's talk about that. The risks to a successful retirement: premature death, unfunded retirement, and chronic illness. My partner Bruce Hirsch tells me that all the time. So what do we do about it? Most people rely on the following retirement income: Social Security, stocks, bonds, mutual funds, IRAs, 401ks. All of these investments are taxable either right now or when you take your money out. Well, are these investments good when taxes go up or taxes go down? And then where are we today in taxes? Do we have low taxes? Do we have high taxes? And yes, I get it. Lots of people say taxes are always too high. But here's a list of, or a chart of the highest marginal tax brackets. Kind of in the middle there. We're kind of in the middle there. But what's happened in this world? What causes tax rates to go up? Well, the deficit and the cost of the deficit. We're at this level of tax rate at extremely low interest rates on our debt in infrastructure that isn't up to date. So we have a big spend that we have to make on infrastructure at some point, either this time in Congress or another time. We're going to spend a whole bunch of money. We need infrastructure. We need roads, bridges, highways, airports. And the cost of debt, if interest rates are going up, is going to be greater. So most people, I would say, think that interest rates are going, tax rates are going to go up rather than down. That makes sense? In the long run. That doesn't mean some Congress could lower tax rates. Sure they can, but in the long run. And here's why. This is the federal deficit. And if you look at this chart, I learned in business school, the charts that go up and to the right are good. Yeah, that's when it has to do with sales and income, not when it has to do with the federal deficit. And you look at the accelerating growth of this. If you are not using the last slide and this slide in some of your presentations, you're missing the boat. Take it from this. Presentation's available. You can get them online, lots of places. But it's why our product in life insurance is so important. Because if tax rates go up, our product is better. If tax rates go up, our product is better. Tax rates are near historic lows. Federal deficit is at its high. Most analysts agree that taxes are going to go up. So how does this affect our planning strategies? Well, if taxes rates decrease, we want to defer taxes. If tax rates are unchanged, it doesn't really matter. But if tax rates increase, we want to pay taxes now and adjust the money to a bucket that's tax favored. Makes sense, doesn't it? So the concept of a 401k plan or an IRA, that we're going to put money in, it's going to grow, and we're going to take the money out at a lower tax rate when we are retired, was the concept that was founded on. And it made a ton of sense. But when something makes sense once, does it always make sense? Maybe not. Maybe we have to revisit that question and say, if tax rates are going to be higher than they are when I retire than they are now, maybe I don't like that concept. Now, we're going to throw that to the wind when someone's matching our 401k. But do we really want to put money in a place that's deferred now and is going to come out with a potentially higher tax? Well, I don't know. I don't know. If I knew for sure, well, you probably own a hedge fund. But I don't know for sure. So I think we need to allocate things correctly. And why is life insurance sometimes better than other investments? Again, my friend Bruce Hirsch would tell me, death and taxes, 2 words, death and taxes. Our life insurance policies have a completion program. It's called death benefit. If we can't make it to our savings goals because we're gone early, we're going to get paid, and taxes because we're going to pay taxes on the money that's going in, meaning that it's after tax money. It's going to grow tax deferred, and we're going to access it tax free. And I'm going to talk about an IUL here, but we could use a whole life insurance policy or a combination of those. And on that note, I'd like everyone to think about everything doesn't have to be in one policy. We create investment portfolios that have many different stocks and bonds and strategies. And together it's called a portfolio, right? Now, how come most people only buy one insurance policy? We like putting together portfolios of insurance policies. It might include 10, 15, and 20-year term insurance. It might include an IUL. It might include a whole life. You could create an elegant portfolio to do that. But an IUL here could be a powerful addition to a balanced portfolio. But how can we make it better? Well, for the right person, we can leverage it. For the wrong person, we shouldn't leverage it. So, who's the right person? In this case, if we have a 40-year-old male, they're putting in $50,000 annually into an IUL, it's 6% return, and a 3% loan interest rate. We can argue about returns and loan interest rates till we're blue in the face. This is a conversation that we're having. It's reasonable. Our loan interest rates are much lower than that right now, and we've earned higher IUL returns. So let's just say it's reasonable. So a LIRP versus a leverage LIRP. If we take that $50,000 and just pay it into a policy versus creating a structure, borrowing money and use the $50,000 for interest. We have 40% greater cash at age 65 if we use some leverage. We have 25% greater income coming out of the policy. We have 2 to 3 times greater death benefit net in the policy. We have increased benefit for the client and the producer. So all I'm saying is it's worth a discussion. Mr. Client, Miss Client, here is the way to do this not financed, and here's a way to do it financed or leveraged. And then we're going to immediately go to the disadvantages of using financing. Why? I want to talk people out of it. You do not want people to have leverage because anything with leverage has a little additional risk, could be a lot of additional risk. If they don't understand it or they're not appropriate from it, I want them just to put the money in and not leverage it. But disadvantages, a client needs to qualify and secure a loan. Well, if they can't do that, red flag, they shouldn't finance. If they can't put up collateral, red flag, they shouldn't finance. Loan terms and documents need to be reviewed. Client needs to provide this outside collateral, which is real. It's real. We assume it's not going to be called, but you better count on it being called. This must be managed. It's a more complex transaction. And there's increased volatility in anything that's leveraged. But let's talk about a little bit one of the objections that I hear, which is, well, what happens if loan interest rates go up and policy interest rates don't change or go down? Well, this slide is LIBOR versus the S&P. When LIBOR has gone down, the crediting rate has gone down a little bit. When there's a connection there. There's a connection there. Not all the time, but there's a connection there. But where there's a real connection is with a whole life policy. When LIBOR goes down, it's not what dividends are based on, but interest rates go down. And yes, there are different yield curves here. There are different yield curves in a short-term interest rate and a longer-term interest rate. But the analogy that I heard was, it can be raining in my backyard and sunny in my front yard, but it can't do that all day. And there will be dislocations where if interest rates jump up real quickly, the LIBOR will go straight up and dividend rates will remain unchanged. But in the long run, they will follow themselves. So it can be raining in the backyard and sunny in the front, but not forever. In the client profile that uses this, it's not for everyone. But the client is looking to maximize retirement income and saving. They have net worth of $2.5 million and or income of $250,000. Without that, very difficult to finance this. Usually younger for a couple ways. We need this arbitrage to work for a long time. And number one, and number two, people like their life simpler when they're older. So I think to start at 35 to 55 is a good place. Be able to have this enforced for 20 years before you're taking income. Very important. A more sophisticated client. I don't want someone who's not sophisticated, who can't understand the arbitrage and understands that there will be good years and there will be bad years. There is not a permanent arbitrage between the premium finance loan interest or the bank finance loan interest in any policy. I don't care if it's whole life, universal life, IUL. There is not a permanent arbitrage. There will be negative years, and you have to talk about that up front. So if the client has objections, you answer the objections. If the client has a few objections and you could tell that they're uncomfortable, don't put a square peg in a round hole. Work with them on a non-leveraged basis. If the client's unwilling or unable to post collateral, I get calls all the time. Howard, can you help me with this case? I have a client, we need to premium finance something, but they can't post collateral. Red flag, don't do it. Not for that person. Okay. It's a wonderful concept. It's not for everyone, but we should look at it. The risks of a successful retirement, we talked about it before: premature death, underfunded retirement, or LTC or chronic illness. The three words there: death, taxes, and long-term care. Because you can add a long-term care rider to these policies for about 2% of the income. So the income coming out will be less, because if there's a cost to it, it'll be a little more. I think in most cases, the benefit outweighs the cost there, but go through it. But don't forget to talk about a long-term care critical illness rider in your LIRP type sales. By incorporating this into your program, we could win more often than not, I believe. It's also a great conversation. It's a conversation that you should have. Idea number 8, a little more complicated here. Private placement life insurance is an amazing vehicle. I own it, I sell it, and I combine it with either a GUL or a whole life many times. And it's a very elegant solution, and we're going to talk about why. But to understand why, I'm going to quickly go through private placement. Okay, what is private placement? How does it work? And how this combination is fantastic. So, private placement, life insurance, private placement, variable annuities. Okay, it's a variable insurance product. It has wholesale pricing. There is no surrender charges. It's open architecture to the investments. Not open when dealing with control by the client. You can't wrap a Schwab account and trade Google in it. But it does have an open architectural investment product. Key features: we have asset protection. We could choose our own asset manager, either in a variable insurance trust, or commonly referred to as a mutual fund type solution, like in a VUL. Alternative investments, IDFs, insurance dedicated funds, or a separate account manager that manages those. And it's US law compliant. This goes for all life insurance, but I'm specifically talking about this when having to do with private placement. A client living in California, why? Because it's high tax state and it's easier for me to make private placement look better. So I'm going to use California. But if you live in Florida or Texas where there's no tax, this still looks really good. So gross investment return of 8%, federal taxes of 36%, state taxes, some insurance costs of a traditional investment. There isn't any. And your net is 4.01. Boy, worked really hard to make 8%, and I made 4.01 net. Inside of that private placement, we have a gross investment return of 8%. We have no taxes. We do have insurance costs that we've illustrated here at 80 basis points, and then that return of 7.2. In business school, I learned that 7.2 is better than 4.1 when looking at your investments when they have the same underlying risk structure. So just a comparison of that. So we all know that. Who should this be? It should be with wealthy individuals. Clients $20, $30 million or more of assets. I will tell you that every client who owns private placement with me, and I have a significant number of them, have said the following to me: why doesn't everyone do this? It's the most positive thing and frustrating thing I could hear. Why doesn't everyone do this? What do I do? I tell them the client's special. And do they have any other special friends that they should have me talk to? We grow our businesses, don't we? But also it frustrates me because I think there's an amazing structure that people should use. It's asset protected like every other life insurance policy. It's tax deferred in growth. It's tax-free in death benefit. We can access the money. It's institutionally priced. And it's an amazing product. As I said, there's a life insurance and annuity structure. The annuity structure is less expensive. Why? There's no life insurance. The annuity structure doesn't have underwriting, so we could get it done faster. However, as we know, the difference between FIFO and LIFO taxation. First in, first out is life insurance. First in's premium, first out's life insurance. You could withdraw to basis and then take loans. In an annuity, it's LIFO, last in. Last in is earnings come out first and you pay tax on it until you get to your basis. There's also a surrender. There's a penalty if you access before 59.5. We know all these things, but what I'm telling you this is it's no different inside of the private placement life insurance and a traditional life insurance or private placement annuity and a traditional annuity. We have a structure where we're not going over it. It's the same structure you're looking at, except that the money is not on the insurance company's balance sheet. It's in a separate account, which is the same as variable life insurance. The type of investments we have insurance dedicated funds. Those are the funds that are created in house a hedge fund, a fund of funds, a private equity fund, a direct lending fund, some sort of structure that we've put in an insurance dedicated fund. Or you can have the mutual funds, or you can have a separate account where the separate account manager, that might be the client's IRA, can manage the portfolio inside of the separate account. And remember, you could have all three. We have many clients who have insurance dedicated funds in their policy, they have mutual funds in their policy, and they have separately managed accounts in their policies. So we could do that. There's some compliance things here that we have to talk about and understand this is a registered product. We don't market the product like we market other things. You have to work with your broker dealer to do this. But a couple of things you should know, that the features of this include something that is on this list called K1s. So it is incredibly frustrating to me personally and to our clients that they receive a K1 that's very complicated, that adds time and expense to their tax returns, and they receive them way late, maybe July, August, September, and they're filing late tax returns. Well, if you have that same investment inside of a private placement life insurance structure or private placement annuity structure, who owns it? Well, the insurance company owns it. They put it in your account, but they own it. So they made the allocation. So there's no K1. That may seem a little crazy to people, but that's a moving point that people decide to move forward because of that, but it's true. But they have lots of the same creditor protection. You have access to your liquidity and you have tax deferral. And you all have access to these slides. There's a lot on these slides. Here's the policy specifications. I'm showing you this because compliance wants us to, but please note on this two things. $1 million minimum for private placement life insurance, typically. State-specific premium tax. So we do a lot of work in states like South Dakota that has low premiums tax. When I talk about a institutional price product, if you buy a VUL, you're going to have the same state premium tax as everyone else who buys it. Within this product, we could shop states and we could create an LLC to own the policy that's owned by a trust, and we could have a lower state premium tax. And there's no surrender charges. In a private placement annuity, state-specific premium tax, also $500,000 minimum. Just find them. Structural considerations: improve tax efficiencies within your investment portfolio. Supplement your retirement and increase the amount of income in your retirement, we believe, from this structure. We could use this for estate tax and gift tax exemptions. We're gifting money and putting it into private placement because when right now in the grantor trust rules, part of that is the money that's growing inside of that policy is being taxed back to the grantor. That's why it's grantor trust. And sometimes they get a little unhappy that a trust that they've given away for their children now is creating a significant amount of income tax to them in the structure. But if it's inside of a life insurance policy, we all know that that's not going to happen. Intergenerational wealth transfers, we could use GST. We often use split dollar to move money into trusts when there's not gift tax exemptions available. Tax deferred investing, charitable legacy, very important. Many times I have a client, they're going to gift money to their university upon their death. So what do I say? I'm a tax person. I said, well, why don't we give it away now? I'll give them a name a building after you. This will be a great conversation. Your children and grandchildren could see it. And they look at you a little strange. And they say, but what if I need the money? And the last time someone said that to me, my answer was, well, you don't seem to need the first $50 million. The last $5 million doesn't seem to really move your needle. But it did to them. That's not a winning argument. So what I could say is, why don't we place that money in a private placement variable annuity? Why don't we grow the money tax deferred? Why don't we then have that money go into your private foundation or donor advised fund as a beneficiary? You'll avoid taxes on income taxes on all of this. You'll have more money than you thought because you didn't pay tax, and you could give the money to your university or to your university and other organizations. And finally, if you want to change your mind the day before you die, you could change the beneficiary of that. And your breakup fee is paying ordinary income tax upon your death. With an annuity, with a life insurance policy, it's obviously different. So there's complex planning that can be done. Implementation, the key is the timing. It takes a while. Implementation process for private placement life insurance, 8 to 12 weeks. Wish I could do it faster, but I can't. Implementation for a private placement variable annuity, 2 to 6 weeks, much easier. Obviously, there's no underwriting. But now let's talk about the combo plan. So the combo plan is taking our allocation into both private placement life insurance and either a guaranteed product, whole life or universal life. So how do we do that? Consider a family investing $50 million. If they're investing it here where it says TRA, taxable risk asset, so that's just a typical investment. If we earn 8%, their net's 4.01. We have a standard deviation of that portfolio of 16%. We have a Sharpe ratio of 0.12. That would end up at age 88 at 222 million. But if I take 20% of that and put it into a GUL, and 80% of that and putting it into a private placement, my gross rate of return goes down because my GUL rate of return will go down, but it is incredibly predictable. And we are growing things tax deferred and paying them tax free. So our Sharpe ratio goes up to 0.36. Additional return for the same amount of risk, additional return for the same amount of risk, 0.36, that's good. It would grow to $568 million. I learned in business school that 568 million was better than 222 million when counting one's money. If we just move 80% in the private placement, we keep 20% in the traditional investments, it's 565 million. So our traditional investment is outperformed by a GUL. And why is that really important? So let's look at this client. Here's a 50-year-old who has $10 million. He's going to put 30% into a GUL, 70% into a private placement. The GUL death benefit is $14 million here. Why is that important? Because it's more than 10. We're putting 10 million in the entire structure. Our GUL death benefit is 14 million, which means they're going to win. Clients like to win. We have downside protection, positive $4 million. Now I hope this 50-year-old's going to live a long time. The private placement is projected at 8% rate of return at $95 million. And a total, if we live, don't touch it, live till 88 is 109 million. If we just put 100% in the private placement, and we earn 6.5% net, 109 million. So wouldn't everyone agree that we took some risk off the table by having some in a guaranteed product? We've guaranteed the transaction to win, and it didn't cost us anything. We have the same amount of death benefit at the end of the day. But what if we earned 6%? If we earned 6%, our death benefit's the same. It's a GUL, $14 million. We guarantee that we win. The PPVA is worth a lot less because you earn less at 6% instead of 8%. We have 61 million instead of 59. So I believe the elegant solution is to create a GUL in addition to a private placement. In what we would normally put in the fixed account of a private placement, we will keep in a variable. So the client will always have a positive return. The client will feel more comfortable in volatile returns in a volatile return marketplace. And the structure will work and the client will be pleased. And just idea number 9 quickly, it's a SERP swap. It's a SERP swap for people who are executives at not-for-profits. What I learned is who hates taxes most? Is it Republicans, libertarians? No, it's not. It's not-for-profit entities. And not-for-profit entities are subject to a 21% excise tax on income over $1 million for people in the enterprise. Now, this is not doctors in hospitals, but it is the executives in hospitals. But the income calculation includes their 457 plans that vest, and they included them. So if someone's worked their whole life, is $3 million in their 457 plan, they retire, they made $600,000 that year. You would think, well, they're not subject to the tax. But they are. If they have 3 million in their 457, they have 600,000 in income. That's 3.6 million. There's 2.6 million dollars it's taxed. Well, we have a way to avoid that. It is a very complex and difficult solution. Okay, it's a split dollar program that we swap for the 457. We've done this with very large hospitals and other not-for-profits. The executive has to agree, the board has to agree, there's a lot of people involved. And by using a split dollar, the executive gets the money tax-free. The executive has a completion because of the death benefit that's associated with it. And the organization gets their money back. It's a win-win, an absolute win-win. In addition, there's no 990 reporting, and not-for-profits report their highest income. So it doesn't say that Jane Doe earned $3.6 million because they didn't have their 457 plan vest because we swapped it. There's people who are expert in this and needed to help in these situations. But it's a very hot topic to talk to about not-for-profits. Their chief investment officer, their executives at the not-for-profit. There might be one person, there might be 50 people that are affected, but it's incredibly important. I'm running a little short on time. The slides are in the deck, which you'll have. And if anyone ever has any questions, feel free to call me and talk to me about it. But in summary, general ideas, use an agenda, talk to the generation up and down, how interest rates affect income replacement, the new tax proposal, how are we communicating that to our clients and advisors, the automatic referral system we spoke about, using marketing and social media calendars, the leveraged LERP, PPVA and GUL combined, an elegant solution. In the SERP, I see a typo, it's a SERP swap in the split dollar. So I'm going to be quiet and I have a couple minutes for questions.
Absolutely. Thank you, Howard. That was a lot of information. So Chris had a question about how do you plan to adjust the policies in retirement so that they become an investment and not a gamble?
So what I think you mean there is there's two levers there. One, we have to mitigate the costs inside of the policy, and we do that by minimizing the death benefit, and we'll drop the death benefit after 7 years. If this was on the private placement of the SERP, I guess it doesn't matter, but I mean, a private placement or the LERP, it doesn't matter. We're going to do the same things. One, we're going to drop the death benefit. If it has to do with investments, let me make this real clear to everyone here, because all of you are probably more investment advisors than I am. I'm not an investment advisor. I'm an insurance professional. I structure insurance. I work on the risk side of the game, and I work in a advisor team. So we assume that the underlying investments inside the private placement are going to be the same as the underlying investments that they would have been otherwise. And they'll be altered by their chief investment officer of the family, or they'll be altered by the banker or the money manager as they see fit, and will take appropriate risk. But this isn't you put it in place and you forget about it. This takes management, and a private placement it probably takes quarterly to semi-annual management.
And how often do you do policy reviews with just your, let's say, your non-private placement client?
Sure. We ask them what they would want first. So if they say we want monthly, we'll talk them out of that. I think every 2 years. A lot of people have been classically trained, might say that's too long, but we're kind of busy. So we'll be reactive when anyone wants them to be reactive, when anyone wants us to be reactive. We'll talk to them every year. The fact is, I wish I could talk to people more often, but we have to train them to call them when something's up. This is a codependent relationship, and we talk to our clients about that. Hey, I can't know when you have a new job, when you just won the lotto, when the old uncle just gave you a whole bunch of money. You got to talk to me about it. So we will be reactive, but it's usually 18 months to 2 years.
This is a very technical, specific question. Do you use the Kaizen method, or when you're doing premium finance, or do you use something else?
We don't. I'm very familiar with it. Happy to discuss offline. There's nothing wrong with it. That's a shared premium. Instead of, you could put some of your money towards premium, some of it towards interest. That's a package program, the way I understand it. I like separating things, because when you package them up, you can't really take them apart that easily. We want to buy the best life insurance policy and find the best and least expensive premium finance it, and then put them together.
Wonderful. Lots of questions about your information. It is on the APC website that you can go on and get Howard's information. He is truly just a gem in this industry and always willing to share. So thank you for that, Howard. We really appreciate it.
Thank you, Carolyn. Thank everyone on this call for your time. I appreciate it. And as I said, you have choices, and you made it to be here today. And I hope I made that a good choice.
It was a great one. I'm sure of it. Thanks, Howard.